Welcome to Storycraft Portal, where every story is not just told, but deeply felt. Today's narrative is one that shakes the soul and awakens the conscience. In a quiet town in Idaho, a 17-year-old autistic, nonverbal teen named Victor Perez became the victim of a tragic misunderstanding, where a moment of mental health crisis was met not with compassion, but with bullets. This isn't just a story. It's a cry for justice, a reminder of the silent lies we fail to hear until it's too late. Pocatello, Idaho, a town known for its stillness, where life moved gently like the evening breeze. But inside one modest home, silence wasn't peace. It was Victor Perez's entire world. At 17, Victor was nonverbal, living with autism, and navigating a reality most couldn't begin to understand. His family loved him dearly, shielding him from the world's harshness, while celebrating the quiet victories others might overlook. A smile, a gesture, a moment of calm. But no one imagined that this peaceful home would become the center of a national storm. April 5th started like any other day, but as the sun dipped and shadows stretched across the street, a series of choices were made, some out of fear, others out of ignorance, that would soon shatter a family and spark a movement. The silence Victor lived in was about to be broken, but not in the way anyone hoped. April 5th was meant to be ordinary. Victor was having a tough morning, agitated, overwhelmed. His mother, Elena, noticed the signs. He paced more than usual, clutched his chest, and refused his favorite breakfast. Victor wasn't violent, but when the pressure built, he'd retreat into himself or cling to objects for comfort. That day, it was a kitchen knife. Not as a threat, but as a shield. His father called 911, not for arrest, but for help. "My son is autistic. We need crisis support," he said, voice trembling. But the dispatch didn't send mental health professionals. They sent officers. Within minutes, sirens broke the stillness. Flashing lights reflected on their living room walls. Victor stood at the front door, knife still in hand. Unaware of how dangerous, he suddenly looked in the eyes of those who didn't know him. The calm before the storm was gone. The first officer on the scene didn't wait. His hand rested on his holster as he approached the house. Victor's father rushed outside, waving his arms. "He's autistic. He won't understand you. Please don't shout." But training failed. One officer drew his weapon. Another yelled, "Drop the knife." Victor flinched, startled by the shouting. His condition made sudden noise unbearable, confusing. He didn't move forward. He only froze, unsure whether to run or stay. The knife was still at his side, not raised. But to the officers, the image was clear: a teen with a weapon ignoring commands. "He's not listening," one said. But Victor wasn't being defiant. He was terrified. The tragedy wasn't just in the bullets that would follow, but in the voices that failed to understand, the fear that replaced empathy, and the silence of a system that was supposed to protect, not panic. The command came fast: "Drop it now." And then, before anyone could breathe, the shots rang out. 9 in total. The sound shattered the neighborhood. Elena screamed from inside the house as Victor fell to the porch, his body limp, blood spilling into the cracks between the wooden boards. Time slowed. Officers rushed forward, now shouting for medics, now realizing this wasn't a criminal, this was a child. Victor's small frame trembled, then stilled. His eyes, wide open, stared at the darkening sky. The knife slipped from his fingers, untouched. What should have been de-escalation turned into devastation. Within minutes, an ambulance arrived. Victor was still alive, barely. Elena collapsed next to him, holding his hand, whispering, I'm here, baby." But no words could stop what had already been set in motion. The world outside was finally reacting, but inside, the damage was already done. Victor arrived at the hospital unconscious. The bullets had torn through his abdomen, chest, and legs. One leg was so damaged, doctors had no choice but to amputate. He was placed on life support, breathing through machines, surrounded by wires and beeping monitors. His family stayed by his side day and night. News began to spread. Protests formed outside the hospital. People held signs, "Justice for Victor. Autism is not a crime." But inside, all that mattered was hope. Elena whispered prayers while clutching Victor's favorite stuffed animal. His little sister drew pictures for him, taping them to the walls. "He loves stars," she said softly. The doctors were grim. "His brain activity is fading," one said gently. But the family refused to give up. For them, he was still there, silent, yes, but breathing. For now, they just needed one miracle. Just one sign he was coming back. 4 days after the shooting, body cam footage was released. It went viral within hours. Millions watched Victor stand still, knife down, confusion on his face. They heard the rapid shouting, the fear in his father's voice, the deafening crack of gunfire. Social media erupted. Hashtags like #JusticeForVictor and #AutismAwarenessNow trended worldwide. Celebrities spoke up. Autism advocates demanded reforms. He wasn't dangerous. He was misunderstood. One tweet read. News outlets aired interviews with experts, all saying the same. This was avoidable. Meanwhile, Victor lay in his hospital bed, still unresponsive. His face, pale and swollen, became the face of a movement. Schools held moments of silence. Mental health organizations called for change. But through all the noise, one question echoed louder than the rest. Why was a child treated like a threat? In those seconds, a life was nearly lost, and trust in the system began to unravel. Victor's story became a national call to action. Parents of autistic children spoke out, sharing stories of similar fears. "This could have been my son," one mother said, wiping tears. Community leaders organized town halls. Activists demanded police reform, better training, real accountability. Meanwhile, Victor's family was caught in a painful waiting game. Each day, they sat by his side, praying for movement, a flicker, a squeeze of the hand. Nothing came. A week passed. His brain activity remained faint. Still, the family refused to discuss life support. "He's a fighter," Elena whispered. Support poured in, letters, donations, art from children who had never met Victor but saw him in themselves. "He's all of us," one card read. And yet, beneath the love and hope, a quiet grief took root. Because love alone can't pull someone back from the edge. And every passing hour pushed Victor closer to it. On the morning of April 13th, the doctors called the Perez family in. "There's no significant brain function," they said. The machines were breathing for Victor. His heart beat only with medication. Elena broke. Her husband held her as she collapsed into sobs. They had fought every second for him, but now they faced an unthinkable decision. That afternoon, the family gathered in his room, parents, sister, grandparents. They played his favorite music, told him stories, and whispered that he was loved so deeply. With trembling hands, Elena gave the final nod. The machines were turned off. The room fell silent. Victor took one last breath. He was gone. Outside, supporters lit candles. Inside, the world stood still. A boy who never spoke had spoken to millions, not with words, but with truth. And though his voice was gone, his story was far from over. Victor's death sent shockwaves across the nation. In Idaho, hundreds gathered for his funeral. Strangers, friends, families of other neurodivergent children. His casket was white, adorned with blue stars, his favorite. His sister placed her last drawing inside it. At city halls and school boards, people demanded answers. Why wasn't a mental health team sent? Why was force the first response? The officers involved were placed on leave, but not arrested. The mayor called for an internal review, promising change. But for Victor's family, those words felt hollow. Change wouldn't bring him back. Still, they pressed forward, launching the Victor Foundation, aimed at training first responders in autism awareness. Elena stood at a vigil, her voice steady. "My son didn't die in vain. You will know his name, and you will remember what silence cost him." The system hadn't just failed Victor. It failed everyone who loved him. 3 months later, the official investigation ended. The officers were cleared of criminal wrongdoing, citing perceived threat and protocol. The news hit like a second bullet. But the Perez family, while heartbroken, wasn't surprised. They had learned justice doesn't always come from the courtroom. It grows in the hearts of people who refuse to forget. The Victor Foundation expanded rapidly, partnering with schools, police departments, and mental health advocates nationwide. Victor's story became curriculum. His name was written into laws pushing for required neurodiversity training. Elena visited schools, showing pictures of her son smiling, drawing stars. He was loved, she'd say. He was light. Victor Perez never spoke a word, but through tragedy, his voice changed lives. The case may be closed, but the conversation it started will echo far longer than the silence that once surrounded him. He is not just remembered. He is movement. He is meaning.